Welcome back. This is John with Recovery Life Now. I'm super excited. You have made it so far in this program, and we are down to our last few sessions. And, we've talked a lot about, I want us to just think back a little bit to our process. We've talked about getting the structures in place that help us to be healthy, the 5 C's, walking in integrity and sobriety, right? That was our first section. We've also talked some about our trauma and the pieces of our life that really cause us to become, to need our addiction. And then now we're really talking about legacy and purpose. And what is it that we're moving into today? We're actually getting into relationships, integrity, and legacy. And so, but I, before we jump in, I just want to say, nice work, way to go. Give yourself a pat on the back. Sometimes that's an important part of recovery, is learning to care for ourselves well, learning to acknowledge our wins and not just focus on our losses, because where Tony Robbins says, what you focus on grows, right? Where focus goes, energy flows. And so do focus on the goodness. Obviously we can't deny the badness forever. But focusing on the goodness helps it to grow. And that's a lot of what we're talking about today in one of these last weeks here. For the past several weeks, we've been focusing on breaking chains and healing those wounds and rediscovering who we are. So today we're kind of turning a corner and looking at our relationships, our own integrity. What does our integrity look like, and the leadership that we offer to others. And so as I think about that, it's important to look back and see that we have made progress in our integrity, and we're looking for progress, not always perfection. Obviously perfection is preferred, right? But giving ourselves an opportunity to acknowledge the improvements that we've made. When we keep up with our 5 C's, when we keep up with the daily exercises, we're actually building trust with ourselves. We're also building trust with those around us. So freedom isn't just about us. It's about who we are becoming for others. And, you are becoming that man of integrity that you have already begun to become is impactful for a lot of people, for more people than we even know right now. But especially for your family. And so today we're just talking about how to show up in those relationships as the man God created you to be: honest, humble, trustworthy, and strong in spirit. Relationships, obviously a big deal. They reveal our growth. And it's one thing to have sobriety and be doing really good and going, oh yeah, I'm great, when we're living in isolation or when we're living by ourselves and we're not around other people, and other people aren't, saying, hey, you didn't do this, or there's no opportunity for conflict. And, we all know kind of some of the hermit types that try to escape other people and, live in a shack on the outside of town that never experiences that conflict. And I don't think that's a real healthy way to live. That's living outside of those relationships and we need relationships. I think about Proverbs, where it talks about, a friend sticks closer than a brother. There's somebody in relationship with you, and a friend loves at all times, and a brother's born for adversity. And the other scripture that I'm thinking of is just that a friend sharpens you. I'm trying to think of what that verse is off the top of my head here, but when we come together, there is steel on steel. There is a clashing. There is a that sharpens us, and that is not always comfortable. There's some grinding there. There's some cutting there. There's some sparks that fly, and that conflict is good for us to see and to notice and to let it cut off some of those places where we are dull, and to make us sharp. And so relationships are where your growth is tested and revealed. It's easy to feel healed when we're alone, but relationships will show us what's really happening in our heart. Your marriage, your friendships, and even your work life will mirror your recovery. If you're making progress in recovery, you're going to have better and more opportunities at work, and in your career. You're going to have a better flowing marriage. And so looking at those things as a mirror, not that they're always 100% accurate, because other people at work, even our spouse, can be going through things in their own life that are impacting us, but in general, we need to notice, hey, what is the mirror exposing of me right now? And so as we have gained new habits, it takes a while for that mirror to kick in, right? Especially with our spouse. Oftentimes we're like, honey, I've been sober for 3 months. Okay, well, it's probably going to take more like 9 months or a year or two for her to really begin to acknowledge that shift and that change for her. And obviously, each situation is very different. And talk to your coach or therapist about that if that feels really discouraging to you, because you may not be in a situation like that. But when you feel tension, instead of asking what's wrong with them or what's wrong with me or what's wrong with this relationship, let's begin to ask, what is this relationship teaching me about me? God, what are you trying to teach me about me, right? Bring it close, but don't take everything that goes on super personal either, if that makes sense. Like, notice the reflection. You may need to make some adjustments, but it doesn't mean the reflection is always 100% accurate of what's going on for you. Relationships don't just expose us, they shape us. That's that, right, of the sword. It's the steel on steel. It's okay if your wife still is struggling to trust you. And I think for most of us, when we want it to come quickly, we want trust now. We want trust yesterday. I fixed my problem today. Why don't you start trusting me? And it takes longer because they're in a process of grief and healing and coming out of the ICU emotionally, and that takes time. It takes time for them to learn to walk and to crawl first, probably crawl first, then walk, and then run with you. So, and your patience and your ability to be patient is directly related to how your recovery is going. And as you feel that need for, and your frustration with her, if you can bring it to your guys and put that weight with your guys rather than pushing on her, you're going to get a lot further down the road, because when she's recovering from the trauma that she's experienced, it's impossible for her to carry that weight or an expectation until much further down the track, if that makes sense. So recognize that she's not the enemy. She is a mirror, and your brothers are mirrors too. And and it's a good idea to listen or to pay attention to the plurality of mirrors, right? If my brothers are telling me my recovery is really solid and my wife is telling me that it's not, I need to probably take all of it with a grain of salt and mix some of it and go, okay, guys, my wife is saying this, honey, the guys are saying this, and kind of listen, but also recognize it for what it is, not a perfect reflection. So I also want to talk about, yes, let me finish saying that. So trust isn't built by promises, it's built by patterns and long-term history. And so continue to build. Legacy is not built overnight. Repair is not made overnight. And yes, you have made significant strides. And this 90 or 100-day challenge is not just about this 90 or 100 days. Yes, that's massive. It's huge that you've made it this far. But let's continue to strive forward into the next year. How is it going to look a year from now? For many of us, we didn't relapse every day or 2 or 3 or 4. It was more like every several months. So trust isn't built by promises, it's built by patterns. So continue to build into your pattern for the next year or 2 or 3. And I want to encourage you, recovery is not a one-time thing. It's not a once and done. It's kind of like, losing weight, or it's build in a new pattern and a new eating habit and a new exercise habit, and you drop the 50 pounds. But if you go right back to doing what you was doing before, you're going to be right back where you were before, right? And so continuing your 5 C's, huge. Continuing to lean into your community of men, continuing to reshape your mind, all very important. So trust isn't built by promises, it's built by patterns. Let's talk a little bit about integrity. Integrity isn't about being perfect, it's about being whole and walking whole. I think about the word shalom. It means complete, full peace, body, soul, spirit, right? Like, can I be in a state of being whole? And I think Jesus came to restore us to shalom. And oftentimes the things that the trauma that's happened to us and the trauma that we've inflicted on other people causes a breakage in shalom. It causes shalom to be shattered. And so recovery is about restoring that shalom. And the word integrity comes from the root integer, meaning one or whole. And so, and in our addiction, we're often very compartmentalized. Today, I'm good, John, and I walk in a good path and I'm doing the good things. And then tonight, or whenever I have that moment of trigger or whatever, I go into bad John and go do this other stuff that I don't want anybody to know I'm doing. And so in our recovery, we unite the wholes. We've gone into the trauma of the bad part. We call it the bad parts of ourselves, or the places of shame. And we've begun to dig out some of those things. And maybe there's some more work to do. I would guess that there probably is. But we've begun to pull some of that out and reintegrate into a complete whole. Does that make sense? And so we're trying to become one whole person. How can we love with our whole heart, whether it be loving God or loving our spouse, if we have a soul that is divided? And so in our addiction, our lives were fragmented, but in our recovery, we become one person again. Integrity means alignment between our beliefs, our words, and our actions. You know, how many times in my addiction do I go, yes, I believe this, but I'm doing this, right? And so, yeah, every time we tell the truth, even when it costs us, we're reinforcing our new identity. We're reinforcing our integrity. Every time we follow through, even when no one's watching, we're strengthening our integrity. So it's a lot like a muscle. At first it's weak, but every act of honesty is a rep. And over time, we grow stronger and stronger, and we're able to carry the weight of responsibility, leadership, and love. Finally, talk a little bit about healing relationships. Many of us are trying to rebuild those relationships, especially with our spouse, with our family and close friends. Let me remind you that building trust takes time. Consistency plus time plus truth equals trust. So consistency plus time plus truth equals trust. You can't demand trust. We earn it through patterns, not promises. And so we tell people all the time in recovery, we believe behavior. What does your behavior say about what you're doing? And your job isn't to convince people you've changed, it's to live changed. And that means humility when someone brings up the past, listening instead of defending, and being patient when others are hurting us. So when someone says, I don't believe you've changed, you're still the old bastard you used to be. Instead of arguing, let's say, hey, I understand why you feel that way. I know my actions have hurt you, and I'm committed to earning your trust again. That is strength, and that's recovery. And that flows from knowing who we are. It flows from knowing that I am a man of integrity. I may not live it 100% perfect, but I'm living very close to that. And I give myself room to be human, but I'm also give myself a standard that I live by. And so when I mess up or I make a mistake, I get honest about it quickly. I bring it into the light and I take responsibility for it. And that's what men of integrity do. And that's what strength and recovery is: acknowledging what we've done, taking responsibility for the hurt that we've caused, and moving forward. Most men in recovery realize that they've been lonely for a long time. And I want to ask you about that. Do you feel like you've been lonely for a long time? Do you feel alone now? And how has community with men impacted your loneliness? I'd love to hear from you about that and know how that transition for you from where you were in your addiction to where you've been in this 90-day program. How has that shifted your heart? Are you really leaning into community well? Are you in a recovery group where you're sharing your feelings, your deeper emotions, and going deep with men? Because that is freaking essential. We have plenty of acquaintances, but we have very few safe brothers. And healthy friendship requires two things: honesty and presence. It requires us showing up again and again, and it requires us to be honest when we do so. So as you think about finishing out this program, I want to ask you to begin to create your plan for beyond this program. How are you going to stay connected to groups? We definitely offer groups here, but are there other groups that you could get involved with or start that would provide a space for you to really open up your heart and really be honest and have that presence. Because if you isolate again, now that you're doing better, it's going to, you will regress. It may take a while, but I see it so often with dudes in the recovery village where I work. They come in, we're in an inpatient setting, we're living together with other people struggling with addiction, we're all sober, we're all sharing our feelings, we've got our classes, we've got everything going for us. We go, oh yeah, I'm never going to drink again, I'm never going to use again, I'm never going to look at porn again. And then we walk out the door, or I see them walk out the door, and they go into immediate isolation. They stop doing their exercises. They start eating junk food of the mind, right? Start thinking the wrong thoughts, and they're not staying in the recovery material. And it's like they're buff bodybuilders that just quit eating right, quit exercising, and walked out the door. And before you know it, all those big muscles have turned into flab, and they're ready to use again whatever their substance or addiction was. And I don't want that to happen for you. So my question for you is, what's your plan? What is your plan, and how are you going to follow through on it? So friendship built on recovery, honesty often become the deepest relationships of our life. And the guys in one of my groups that I go to and love is just, we call ourselves, we're the best friends we wish we never had. None of us ever wanted to go to a recovery group, but now we're so grateful to be a part of each other's lives. So the people that you begin to walk with, and that you already have begun to walk with, will be a part of your legacy later. So leaving that legacy is huge. And so legacy isn't what people remember about you, what continues because of you. What continues because of you? Is it that your kids continue to walk in healthy ways? Maybe. Is it that other people continue to live in sobriety and recovery because of the influence you've had in their life? Heck yeah. Every healed man changes the atmosphere of his home. Every father who breaks the cycle passes on blessing instead of bondage. And your freedom can be generational. Just like our sin can be generational, our freedom can be generational. We may not see the impact, but it's already rippling out. And legacy doesn't start someday. It starts with you and how you live today. The man you're becoming right now will shape how your kids see manhood, how your spouse experiences safety, and how others see hope. I want you to take a moment and just imagine your kids, whether they're real kids, like, that are really yours, or maybe they're people in your life that you influence. And imagine them kind of looking back at you and at your life and saying, my dad was honest. He wasn't perfect, but he was present. What would that feel like to hear them say that? Dad taught me how to face life instead of running from it. That's powerful. That's legacy. And so as we close this week, here's the reflection. Who is benefiting from your recovery right now? Who do you see your recovery impacting, and where do you still need to show up with integrity? Is there people in your life that you're not being integrous with? I think for me, probably one of the later things that's come in my recovery is my financial integrity. Am I paying my bills well? Am I being responsible with money, or am I being flippant and not paying attention to it? Are there areas in your life that need some attention? Now that you're getting the recovery piece in line, maybe there's some other areas that need some care, that you're worthy of addressing. Maybe it's health, right? Are you taking your medication? Are you taking your vitamins? Are you, getting the exercise that you need to get? Those are all good questions to begin asking. So where do I still need to make some changes so that I can show up with integrity? And what legacy are you beginning to build? What is the legacy that I'm beginning to build? I love Michael Hyatt. He's an author, and he talks about writing your own kind of obituary, right? Like writing your own, is it epitaph or obituary? It's one of those two. But it's writing out, John was blah, 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 right? What do I want people to say about me? And beginning to live towards that. And so this week, I want you to write that down. Write down, what do I want people to say about me at my funeral? And what do I want And how am I going to live towards that? And also write down one relationship you want to invest in intentionally. Send a message to them. Schedule that talk. My friend, you're not the same man that you were when you started this journey. You have fought hard, and now it's time to live out what you've learned, not just in words, but in the way that you love. Congratulations, you have made it so far on this journey. We've got one or two more lessons for you, and I'm going to leave you with this: integrity, relationships, and legacy. This is what healed men build. This is what real recovery looks like. I think it looks like healed men healing men, and we all have a part to play in that. And so that's a really incredible question too, is who do I need to be sowing the gifts of healing, putting the seeds of healing into their lives, just like I have received? Are there people in my life that I need to share the message of healing with? Congratulations. We'll see you next time.